What's up? It's Tom. We're going to talk about the weekday action across the Twins minor league system here. With it being Memorial Day week, a little bit of a different look with a game on Monday along with the Twins game. The Wind Surge did play on Monday. There's less than 10 games across the full season minor league landscape. Some do, some don't. There are the Tuesday and Wednesday results, and then Thursday as well. So the Surge instead were off on Wednesday. So a weird schedule for them, but we're going to talk about, I'm not going to relay. This is like 15 games or something, a couple postponements in there as well. Not really going to go over every single one of these games, and especially since we're going to talk, the context of some of these really crazy games is going to come up as we discuss some of the stars of each day. And we are going to combine Monday and Tuesday, by the way, into one day since we kind of had a weird schedule this week. But news and notes, Matt Barr, the fifth-round pick, big 6'6" right-hander who has not pitched this year, had been hurt. He started a rehab assignment with the FCL Twins and pitched an inning on Monday. Really excited to see him pitch. Travis Adams was optioned, but no corresponding Twins move has been made yet, so he's rejoining St. Paul. Easy to guess it's going to be a pitcher. Kind of interesting to keep an eye on things because Kendry Rojas also was scratched from his start, I think yesterday it was. So, not sure. There might be two arms coming up depending on how that goes, but we'll see. Relievers Dan Altavilla and Luis Garcia are no longer in the org. Altavilla was released upon his request, apparently, and Garcia, who was DFA'd, elected free agency. So those guys are no longer in the org. Kalai Rosario was returned to Wichita off the IL. And the DSL Twins, who start on Monday, their roster was announced. So you can check that out if you're curious. We are continuing to just focus on the full season leagues here. So the FCL and the DSL, we're not going to discuss too often. Just heads up. On to the 3 stars of Monday/Tuesday. Again, doing things a little bit differently this week. But we've got Enrique Jimenez, catcher who the Twins acquired from Detroit. 1-for-1 of the double, 3 walks, 2 runs scored, and 2 RBI. So great game for him. Exciting. It was only his 4th game back with the Mighty Muscles. Has been hurt for most of the year, but unfortunately got hurt in this game. Suffered some kind of a leg injury and exited basically immediately after that. It's a crazy play at the plate where it was like easy to envision a catcher getting hurt on. It was one of those deals where the ball and the runner were coming in at the same time. He had to try to make a catch and make the tag sort of simultaneously. But he came out of that fine. Actually, wasn't injured on that interaction. It was actually he couldn't corral the throw, and he was going to go retrieve the ball. And I think he took a weird step on like the fringe of where the grass meets the dirt behind home plate and tweaked something, maybe his knee, but he came up limping. Just a very weird circumstance. He has not played since. It's only been a couple days, but it has not been placed on the IL either. So it's not like there's some, obvious huge issue. Hopefully we see him back out there again because he's a really fun player. Anyway, second star, Yasser Mercedes for the Colonels. I mentioned there was some crazy games. He was a huge part of this game in which Cedar Rapids scored 4 runs in the bottom of the 9th to win it, to walk it off. Incredible comeback. And they were actually down even further. And Mercedes' home run kind of got momentum back building earlier in the game. But in that 9th inning, he singled to drive in a run and advance the game-tying run to third. Then he stole second base, and he eventually scored the game-winning run on a Jay Thomason walk-off single. So a huge, obviously just a good game without any further context, a 2-hit game with a homer and a stolen base and a walk, but a central part to a really impressive Colonels come-from-behind victory. And then the first star of Tuesday was when the Saints played, Hendry Mendez. My goodness. 4-for-4 with 2 doubles and a walk. All 4 of his batted balls were hard hit, in excess of 95 miles per hour. 3 of them were in excess of 100 miles per hour. So Mendez not just like putting up good numbers, just surface numbers, but his under the hood numbers are also really good with St. Paul. More walks than strikeouts so far with the Saints. In 18 games with the Saints, he has a 494 OBP, so almost a 500 OBP in 18 games with the Saints. So yeah, he is absolutely on fire. If you're getting out to CHS Field, there's quite a bit to see, and it's just crazy without Walker Jenkins, without Emmanuel Rodriguez. There's still a really fun outfield in St. Paul. There's just so many guys in that mix. Moving on to the honorable mentions, we get we're actually going to have two of these, a rare double honorable mention. Since the Wind Surge played on both Monday and Tuesday, Kyle DeBarge put up incredibly similar lines in both of those games. He's been really good and in a very different kind of way. Kyle DeBarge hit 20-plus homers in his final college season, but, whether that power was going to translate was a question, and it didn't at all last year. He slugged .362 last season. Not completely shocked that was the case, but hoped for a little bit more power than that. Well, he's slugging .475 in May so far. In 20 games, he has 7 doubles and 4 homers. Again, his last year, slugging over 100 points higher this month than he did last season. Now, this is coming off a very poor April for him, but one, it was his first month in Double-A, and two, he's dramatically changed his batting stance, which I don't know that technically his swing has changed all that much, but his stance has changed. Some parts of his swing, starting from a different spot, has changed his swing. Just very intriguing to take note of that. And his year-to-date numbers look bad because he was really bad in April. But this guy, if he can hit it all, that's going to be a huge thing because he brings value on the bases. He hasn't been quite as successful stealing this year as he was last year, but is speedy and is a good defender, especially at second base. So Kyle DeBarge, well, maybe this is just a hot streak, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. Hopefully he keeps it going. Moving on to Wednesday. This was a lighter game, because this was the day that the Wind Surge was off, and then there was also a postponement. So I think there's only 2 games on Wednesday, so a little bit light. But Paul-Sean Pascolato of Cedar Rapids, 2 innings, 4 strikeouts, no runs. This guy's just been pitching great. He did make a cameo for Wichita, made his Double-A debut earlier this year, but I think he only played 1 game before he went back to Cedar Rapids. But on the season, he's got a 1.35 ERA and 32 strikeouts in 20 innings. This is Paul-Sean Pascolato, which is really noteworthy because he didn't strike out that many guys last year. So this is kind of a new look for him. Moving on, second star Brandon Winokur, who's having a really great month. He was 2 for 3 with a hit by pitch and a stolen base. Again, this was a lighter day in terms of action. But Brandon Winokur has a 923 OPS in May with 21 strikeouts and 13 walks. So a pretty close strikeout to walk ratio, which is really good. That's a huge thing for Brandon Winokur, is just to cut down his strikeouts. So he also had 13 walks in April. So same amount of walks in each month so far. 21 strikeouts in May, 39 strikeouts in April. So he has literally cut his strikeout rate in half from month to month. 40% strikeouts in April, which is obviously a massive red flag. 20% in May. That's just a great indication of how difficult it is to try to say anything concrete about a player, especially like when looking at slices of a month here and a month there, that Brandon Winokur can look like a completely different hitter from April to May. But yeah, 923 OPS in May, though. He's playing really well. First star of Wednesday, though, Mike Paredes, basically locking up May star pitcher of the month at this point. Wraps up May with a 2.7 ERA, a 1.03 whip, 25 strikeouts, and 5 walks. So 5 times as many strikeouts as walks and 23 1/3 innings. Topped out at 95 in this particular outing. Got 13 swinging strikes on his sweeper alone. 5 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, no walks, 7 strikeouts. If there's been kind of one knock against Mike Paredes, it's that he doesn't strike out that many guys. And it's not always there, but it was there on Wednesday. 7 Ks in 5 innings. I'm not sure if he has dramatically changed his pitch mix or if just like the pitch classification has gotten better for him. I think it might be a little bit of both. But he is primarily a sweeper 4-seam changeup guy right now. And that formula really seems to be working. And I mentioned that it appears there might be 2 spots opening up on the Twins pitching staff. I've been saying for a few outings now that Mike Paredes needs to be the next guy up. He is starting right now, but he also has a ton of relief experience. So he's a guy who knows how to come out of the bullpen, give you multiple innings out of the bullpen. I'm not saying he's like some kind of a bullpen savior type guy, because I don't think that's like in terms of a back end of the bullpen, but a guy like that can sort of in a way be a savior. It's just in the middle innings, and with Hendry Rojas potentially and Travis Adams, really both of those guys potentially being out or are not on the active roster, then Andrew Morris has definitely been converted into more of a single inning reliever of late. They could really use a guy like that. So Mike Paredes, I would call him up now. I think the time is right. He's been so good. So anyway, moving on to the honorable mentions. Again, this was a lighter load. If there's a smaller schedule and not that many standout performances, I will slim things down from 5 honorable mentions if necessary. So I did that. Ben Ross hit a homer for the Saints. He now has a 398 OBP in 28 games with the Saints. So guy who really got stuck in Wichita up until this season, really last month, and broke out, and was curious to see, was that just a flash in the pan, and was he going to really get crushed in AAA? And he is not. His numbers aren't quite as good as they were in April in Wichita, but holding his own for sure. And he's made 11 starts in center field, 7 at shortstop, 5 at third base, 3 at second base, and 2 in left field. So just playing all over the infield and the outfield for the Saints has been Ben Ross. Moving on to Thursday, 3 stars of Thursday. Third star is Merritt Jones. Had a cutter-heavy approach in Game 1. This was a doubleheader for Fort Myers. In Game 1 of that day, they won big in that one. Topped out at 94.1 miles per hour. And 3 of his 6 strikeouts came on his changeup. And again, he threw a lot of cutters in this game, so getting a bit of everything in there. His last 2 starts for Merritt Jones, 10 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts, and only 4 hits in 10 innings. For Merritt Jones. So he's a guy hitting his stride here for Fort Myers. Second star, another really good pitching performance, Ryan Gallagher, 5 innings, 4 hits, no runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts. Topped out, this is really crazy. This is the most eye-opening thing of this week, I think. Ryan Gallagher topped out at 97 miles per hour. Here are his max velos in his 5 prior outings with the Saints. Max velos. 93.2, 93.5, 95.7, 95.7, and 95.2. So, and he sits, that's topping out. I think of Ryan Gallagher typically as a guy who's going to sit 91, 92 with his fastball. And so him hitting 97 in this game. But he also threw 4 pitches in excess of 96 miles per hour. So it wasn't just like he really reached back and just cranked it up on one pitch. He threw 4 pitches in excess of 96. He sat 94.3. So again, this is a guy I usually think of like, 91, 92, sitting 94.3. He's also in this outing where he gives up no runs in 5 innings through 50% fastballs. So he is just pumping fastballs. And then a third of his other pitches were cutters. So everything coming in pretty hard. Through 73% of his pitches for strikes. And I think, if you look at his overall numbers, they're not great. So this is a really encouraging performance. Kind of, that's part of why he hasn't pitched that well. Part of why is there's this big velo pop all of a sudden. But something to keep in mind with Ryan Gallagher, since he came over in the Willie Castro trade from the Cubs, maybe we're not quite as familiar with his history. He was drafted in 2024 in the same round as Garrett Horn, who the Twins acquired from Texas at the trade deadline for Danny Coulomb, who Garrett Horn hasn't reached Double-A. He hasn't even reached Double-A. Ryan Gallagher is like 6 outings into his Triple-A career, and Gallagher was drafted around ahead of Eli Jones, who just made his Double-A debut this month. And Ryan Gallagher had been pitching in Double-A before the Twins even acquired him last year. So this is a guy who's been pushed pretty aggressively, I would say. And I think you can kind of see that in some of his inconsistency and some of his performances. But I also think he's maybe a little bit more of an exciting pitching prospect than he gets credit for. And I've kind of consistently ranked him a little bit higher than a lot of other places. And I don't know how long that's going to continue, because now that he's hitting 97 miles per hour, I think that's going to turn some heads. So, yeah, Ryan Gallagher. But this next one, this might be actually the biggest performance of anybody this year, potentially, considering game context. Merphy Hernandez in Game 2 of Fort Myers' doubleheader. This game was insane. We'll talk about that in a sec. But Merphy Hernandez, a 19-year-old Dominican outfielder, part of the youngest lineup in the FSL. I didn't realize this. The Mighty Muscles have the youngest lineup in the Florida State League. That's a weighted average based on age and plate appearances, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, he stole 7 bases. He stole 7 bases in this doubleheader. Just insane. You see there a 4-hit game with 4 stolen bases in Game 2. 7 steals on the day. For his entire minor league career, Hernandez has 60 steals in 81 games, while only getting caught 8 times. It's an 88% success rate. Again, 60 stolen bases in 81 minor league games. Wild. Thursday was his 5th and 6th game since being promoted to Fort Myers, and he just went off. Minor league doubleheaders, right? So these are 7-inning games. That second game of this doubleheader went into 10 innings on a 7-inning game. So just a chaotic game. But the Muscles managed to score 8 runs despite only having 6 hits, and Merphy Hernandez had 4 of their 6 hits in this game. So, when I say like context, like this guy completely carried his team to a crazy come from behind eventual walk-off victory. Fort Myers needed 3 runs in the bottom of the 7th to send it into extra innings. They scored on a basis. They scored so many. You can guess 6 hits, 8 runs. They scored on so many different things. They had a bases loaded walk and a pair of sac flies in the bottom of the 7th to tie it up and extend the game. Hernandez tied the game in the bottom of the 8th with a 2-out RBI single. So the Muscles down to their last out. He barely gets it over the second baseman to tie it up and extend the game. In the 9th, they continued to extend the game by scoring a run on a drawn-in infield. Basically played position and played perfectly. A ground ball straight at the second baseman. Throw comes in. Somehow Ramiro Dominguez, he had the perfect slide. And it wasn't one of those like, Neo in the Matrix where he's, doing this really eccentric slide or like hooking his leg. I think he knew just like, I got to go right in and get to the plate as fast as I can. It was perfect. He barely beat the tag. I don't know. He must have got like the best jump and the best secondary lead you could imagine, because that was no way I thought he was going to score on that. And then in the 10th, they tied it on a run-scoring balk, so they got a gift. So they're scoring on bases-loaded walks. They're scoring on sac flies. They're scoring on, fielder's choices. They're scoring on a balk in the 10th to tie it up. And then Merphy Hernandez hit a 2-out single in a 7-pitch at bat. I think he had one of his 4 hits was on the first pitch, but I think the other 3 were a 6-pitch at bat, a 6-pitch at bat, and a 7-pitch at bat. So this guy was up there battling. So again, in the 10th, he extends that inning with a 2-out hit, steals second base. Of course, 4 stolen bases, pretty much everything. Every time he gets on, he's stealing. And then he scored the game-winning run. So that was just a big game. You have 4 for 4 with 4 steals. That's a massive game anyway. But in the context of this wild comeback win, what a carrying performance from Merphy Hernandez. And he's a fun player, a guy to look out for sure. Moving on to the honorable mentions, Royce Lewis clobbered a ball. He's hitting tons of home runs, but he hit a ball 115 miles per hour on Thursday. Insane. We have another double honorable mention. Yasser Mercedes had a big in their blowout win, went 3 for 3 with a walk. And then in their walk-off win, not a huge game. He only had 1 hit. Again, other than Merphy Hernandez, hits were like impossible to come by for Fort Myers. But he was the one who delivered that walk-off single with 2 outs in the bottom of the 10th. Desperate, just I'm sure both teams after the second leg of a doubleheader going that deep. Somebody had to finish that one off, and it was Yasser Mercedes. He's back. He's hitting .327 with a .398 OBP after a rough 2025. Spending a bit of a higher percentage of his time in left field these days, but is still primarily a second baseman. So Just also want to call out Jason Wrights, had a 3 scoreless inning in that crazy game 2 for Fort Myers. 3 scoreless innings with 2 strikeouts. Dason Hill, wow, that's a terrifying line for him. Only recorded 2 outs, walked 6 batters, gave up 4 runs. We could pretty easily say, like, this is a bizarro outing where I think he had a blister issue in his previous outing. So I'm guessing things probably aren't all together there. That is the type of that's the type of performance I don't really want to revisit, to be honest. I'm not going to go out of my way to look for that one. Yeah, poor Dason Hill. Anyway, updated star scoreboard on the season here. But I think want to spend a little bit more time. I think that the biggest thing is Mike Paredes is coming for Eli Jones on the top pitcher here. But a lot of names, a lot of familiar names, a lot of good players in the upper minors among this list. But May, we're coming down here, coming down at the end of the month. How's it looking? Billy Amick barely ahead of Hendry Mendez, Yasser Mercedes, Ricardo Olivar, Kyler Fedko, Brandon Winokur, Jaime Ferrer, Aaron Sabato, and Orlando Arcia, who's up with the Twins. So he's not in the mix anymore, but had a really good May prior to getting called up. But Billy Amick currently in the driver's seat for May Star Hitter of the Month, guy who leads the system in home runs. Had a quiet week so far this week, though. And then Mike Paredes, has combined with Dason Hill, really having a poor outing. Mike Paredes basically locked in on May Star Pitcher of the Month. He's just been excellent. At the end, as we kind of turn the page to June, we'll talk about the May Hitter and Pitcher of the Month, and I'll also have a updated prospect list at some point. So that is the info. Check out Limestone Pipeline. A couple new things going on this week. Every Monday, we're going to have a free to everybody kind of look back at the prior week. Week in review type thing for the minor league system. Also, we're offering annual memberships now, so you get a 20% discount compared to a monthly, which is $4 a month, so 20% off on an annual. So that a lot of the video I'm sharing on Limestone Pipeline goes beyond highlights. As we get into draft season 2, Jamie has been killing it. He talked. We have a podcast that you can get if you're a subscriber. That Jamie talked about Von Lackey for 20 minutes, just gold. Just gold if you want to know more about that potential Twins number 3 overall pick. Can't say enough about Jamie's draft coverage. Thanks for checking out this video. Always appreciate any support, whether it's here or at Twins Daily, where I wrote about what I think the Twins should do with Royce Lewis, and it was kind of controversial. But here, Twins Daily, Limestone Pipeline, wherever you find me, appreciate it. Thanks for checking this one out. We'll talk again soon.